entertainment for Easter Monday on Thames. At 9:15, an officer and a gentleman.
How did you slip into this program? I didn't know the Navy was so hard up.
You sure got the timetable down, Lynette.
You're playing with fire, boys.
Could you introduce us to these two young ladies, please? I hope you have a good time.
I think it'd be a gas to fly.
You're out! Don't you do it! I see you've had some training, man, eh? Oh!
Richard Gere and Deborah Winger in the British television premiere of An Officer and a Gentleman. Terrific film entertainment for your Easter Monday at 9:15 on Thames.
He's late.
No, your watch is fast.
It's the uncertainty I can't stand. What a time to run out. I could...
Can you hear something? That's him.
Crunchy breadcrumbs with a lemony tang and a delicious fried scampi flavor. Scampi flavor fries from Smith's. Or are they?
Are you ready to play? Play.
How long before you realise it's not a game?
You're looking a bit bushed, no?
Yeah, I had to rescue this bloke. Broken down 300 mile out in the desert with a truckload of Castlemaine XXXX. 118 in the shade, no tucker, no water. Out there 4 days he was.
Reckon it must have been the 4X that saved his life, no?
Too right. Been any other lager, I wouldn't have gone to get him.
Australians wouldn't give a Castlemaine XXXX for anything else.
Tomorrow at 8, an old friend haunts Magnum.
Wasn't Magnum always conning Mac? And wouldn't we just love to get even?
I would ask nothing more of life.
Who the hell are you?
Well, what would you say if I told you I was Mac?
Who are you?
Who am I?
His name's Magnum, and the question's not who he is, but what's he doing posing as a naval officer in an illegal gambling house.
An old friend and big trouble for Magnum. Tomorrow at 8 on Thames.
This is Thames from London. The Queen sees the fire damage at Hampton Court. She says it's dreadful. The widow of a war hero is feared dead. A body is found. 36 loyalists injured as RUC fire plastic bullets on demonstration. And England's cricketers down and nearly out in the West Indies. Good evening. The Queen has described the fire which gutted a wing of Hampton Court Palace as dreadful. She saw the ruins with Prince Charles and Princess Margaret. A body recovered from the wreckage hasn't been identified, but it's feared it's Lady Daphne Gale, the widow of a wartime Commander General Sir Richard Gale. The blaze in the south wing of the 16th century palace destroyed state apartments and valuable art treasures. Damage could run into millions of pounds.
The fire broke out between 5 and 6 o'clock this morning. But by the time fire officers arrived, it was already out of control. An entire section of the roof caved in, taking with it the floor below. It's thought the blaze started in one of the residential state apartments on the second floor. 8 elderly ladies escaped just minutes before their rooms were engulfed in flames, but Lady Gale was missing. At one stage, 120 fire officers were fighting the blaze, many of them wearing breathing apparatus. Gaining access was often painfully slow because of security locks fitted to doors and windows. But even as the flames died down, the officers had to pick their way carefully through the debris because of the danger of falling masonry and timber.
This type of building is always difficult to enter because it's a secure building. It's the conflict between easy access for the brigade and the security of the premises. We have to overcome that. We're used to it, and doors have to be broken down and other security procedures breached before we can start an effective firefighting operation.
Environment Secretary Kenneth Baker had high praise for the fire brigade.
They got here very quickly. I have the greatest praise for them. They've done marvellously. They saved the people, which is important, and they and our own staff saved as much as we could of what are quite irreplaceable parts of our history.
By mid-afternoon, fire officers searching the smouldering apartment rooms of Lady Gale had discovered the badly charred remains of a victim of the fire. The remains were taken away, though its expected identification will take some time. Later, the Queen, who owns the palace, arrived to see the full extent of the damage for herself. She was shown around by palace staff and saw the cartoon gallery, which was gutted by the blaze. Miraculously, only 2 paintings were completely destroyed. Her Majesty, clearly disturbed by what she saw, described the scene as dreadful. By sheer good fortune, many priceless tapestries had been removed for cleaning shortly before the fire. Prince Charles, still wearing a sling after a recent accident, joined the Queen. The royal party had to wade through ashes and debris strewn across the floor. The Prince was briefed on the structural damage. It'll be some time before there'll be an accurate assessment of how extensive it is. Even the smallest piece of debris will have to be kept and carefully logged to help architects with the restoration. It's expected to be a massive job costing millions of pounds. The government's already agreed to foot the bill. In terms of its scale, it's being compared to the restoration of York Minster. Firemen are now beginning to scale down their operation, but it could be years before the palace is restored to its former glory. John Draper, ITN, Hampton Court Palace.
Hampton Court Palace has stood for nearly 500 years as the country's finest example of Tudor architecture. Built by Cardinal Wolsey as a lavish gift for Henry VIII, it continued to be a favourite of kings through the ages. Christopher Wren was called in to modernise part of it. After the palace ceased to be a royal residence, about 1,000 grace and favour rooms were given over to royal pensioners rent-free. William IV called it the quality poorhouse. Only 15 apartments are left, mostly occupied by ex-servicemen's widows. Hampton Court is now a tourist haven, the country's leading attraction after the Tower of London. On show is part of the Queen's private art collection. It's hoped most has survived today's blaze, but the famous cloth of gold seen here is badly damaged. Historians are calling today a tragedy.
It's totally destroyed. And it can't be much worse than that. It's a disaster. I mean, it's a 16th century Wren building, which you just cannot replace.
Once the favourite of kings, the palace is rarely used by the royal family these days. The last dignitary to be entertained there was Russia's Mikhail Gorbachev. Hampton Court is unlikely to host another banquet for some time.
Northern Ireland police have fired 125 plastic bullets at a crowd of loyalist demonstrators in Portadown. 13 RUC men and 36 demonstrators were injured. A hospital spokesman said many of the injuries were caused by the plastic bullets. The violence erupted when loyalists threw stones and other missiles at police and troops, enforcing a government ban on today's Apprentice Boys parade in the town. The Northern Ireland Secretary, Mr. Tom King, stopped the march after police reports that Protestant paramilitaries intended using guns and bombs. 28 members of the Ulster Defence Association have been arrested.
Around Portadown, the barricades were solid. The police determined to stamp their authority on the day. Some marchers did try to get through to the town centre, but the confrontation here was more of a ritual than a serious attempt. In the town itself, the Catholic estates were even more heavily guarded, with soldiers in support. The marchers from Portadown itself, of course, were already in the town, but the police sealed off the side streets and allowed them only to march endlessly up and down the main street. The police, as it turned out, were well within stone's throw, and during a long afternoon they came under a hail of stones and bricks. Inevitably, the police used baton rounds to clear the rioters from the corner. The police blocks at the other end of the town centre were also being heavily stoned. There were casualties, 13 policemen seriously injured and taken to hospital. Some injured policemen were jeered by the crowd. There were 36 civilian casualties, 3 are in hospital, 1 seriously ill, 2 undergoing surgery. It's believed they were hit by baton rounds. The police ban on the Portadown parade was imposed late last night. At midnight, the Chief Constable, Sir John Herman, explained where he felt the threat of violence was coming from.
One would loosely describe them as loyalists, subversives and paramilitaries. I would not want to go into any greater detail. Their intentions are to cause riot and disturbance, to attack the security forces, and using very, very high level of violence in terms of attacking the security forces and having recourse to firearms if that opportunity presents itself to them.
At 4:30 this morning, after an illegal parade had been hastily organised, Ian Paisley explained the reason for that.
I will walk, and I will defy any government ban on refusing me the right to walk in a Protestant town.
There were, of course, other apprentice boy parades going on today, and those who would have gone to Portadown were asked to attend those. And that appears to be what most of the apprentice boys did do. Desmond Hamill, ITN, Northern Ireland.
In Mexico, 166 people are feared dead after an airliner crashed into a mountainside only minutes after takeoff. The Mexicana airline Boeing 727 left Mexico City for Los Angeles at about 3 o'clock this afternoon. It crashed at San Miguel El Alto, 170 miles northwest of Mexico City. Helicopter pilots at the scene said there were no initial signs of survivors, and the cause of the crash isn't clear. West German police and anti-nuclear demonstrators have clashed outside the site of Germany's first nuclear waste processing plant. The police used tear gas and water cannon to break up a crowd of about 30,000 protesters near the village of Wackersdorf in Bavaria. 68 people were arrested after attempts were made to pull down fencing around the construction site. Back home, Greenpeace campaigners have arrived off the Cumbrian coast for a week of demonstrations against the Sellafield nuclear reprocessing plant. Their ship Sirius is to lead the protest against radioactive contamination of the Irish Sea.
Sirius and her crew of veterans from previous campaigns arrived off Sellafield in what they hope will be a series of well-publicised events. They do not expect to be in conflict with the authorities, but soon after her arrival, Sirius was shadowed by a vessel that Greenpeace said was sent out by British Nuclear Fuels to spy on them. BNF representatives were on board, but not very forthcoming. So you're not spying on Greenpeace then?
Observing, not spying, observing.
The so-called peaceful direct action began 2 miles offshore with the crew and helpers inflating 3,000 balloons with helium. They're later released to symbolise emissions of atmospheric radiation from the plant. The message was brief and to the point. A phased closure of Sellafield. Greenpeace say they do not want to find themselves once again facing the consequences of any illegal actions this week.
You know, the thing that Greenpeace would love to do is to block that pipeline and stop it polluting the Irish Sea. But British Nuclear Fuels have got an injunction. We failed to have that lifted last week, and so we must abide by the law.
Today's demonstration was relatively tame by their standards, and the protest will have to remain that way if the campaigners do not want to break the law. Brent Sadler, ITN, off Sellafield.
The grandmother of the missing Leeds schoolgirl, Sarah Harper, says the family now fear she's dead. 10-year-old Sarah disappeared 5 days ago on a trip to her local store. As West Yorkshire police began a thorough search of houses near her home in Morley, her grandmother appealed for Sarah's safe return.
Please let her go. I know they'll be frightened of being found, But as if they just left her somewhere where she could be found and let us pick her up and take her home.
The threat of closure at Express newspapers is over. The group tonight reached agreement with the unions on cutting its workforce by nearly a third. 2,500 jobs will go either through voluntary redundancy or early retirement. Cricket. In the fourth one-day international in Trinidad, England have set the West Indies an easy target of 166 for victory. The West Indies are now 87 for 2 after 24 overs.
For once, the West Indies' fearsome foursome were tamed by their own pitch, as Gooch found the pace easygoing and the fielding even more so. But it wasn't long before the slowness of the wicket undid him. Gooch on 10, skewering up a tasty morsel for Richards to swallow. Marshall motored in a good yard faster to greet Gower with a glare. The captain was to play an innings more curate's egg than Easter, very bad in parts. Then again, he could be very, very good, driving Holding delightfully through the covers as he remembered his responsibilities. Though he was mighty lucky to survive a run-out and a catch behind. Gower had gathered 20 when Walsh made absolutely certain. The captain looked resigned. Some critics say he should have done already. Walsh had Lamb on a plate, but spilled him as their fortune freewheeled. Though he'd added only 11 more when Walsh carved him up. The boys in the trees were still waiting for their Easter treat, and both of them didn't disappoint, quickly making space to play some outrageous shots. His behaviour matched his batting as he stripped to the bare essentials, then showed the crowd his rare credentials. His old mate Richards clearly thought he needed a lesson in good manners, scolding both of them for his cheek as he made indecent haste for the crease. His other Somerset mucker, Garner, then completely floored him, though by now both of them was having fun. Robinson had played the straight man, scoring 55 off 40 overs when Marshall stopped him. Both of them finally went batting the only way he knows, going for broke, and that really was it for England. But Foster gave the tourist a terrific fillip, bowling Greenwich second ball. But the man of the series, Richie Richardson, suggested a target of 166 wouldn't be too much trouble. Jeremy Thompson, ITN Sport in Trinidad.
And that's it from all of us. Good night.
Now, news of the weather we can expect in the Thames area. After showers have died out this evening, it'll be a clear, cold night with a temperature close to freezing by morning and a slight frost in places. Tomorrow will be another day of sunshine and showers, with some of the showers again heavy and squally with hail and thunder. The temperature should reach 10 Celsius, 50 Fahrenheit in the brighter spells. So there you are, that's the weather forecast. In a moment, tonight's big film, An Officer and a Gentleman, starring Richard Gere.
When you hand wash a delicate machine washable dress in Dreft, you can be sure it'll stay in perfect shape. But if you were to wash an identical dress in your machine, would it come out the same? With Dreft Automatic it would, because Dreft Automatic keeps your favorite clothes in the same perfect shape as hand washing in Dreft. At last, a Dreft for your automatic.
The new Nissan Bluebird sets higher standards for European cars. A range of 1.6 to 2-litre saloons and hatchbacks, including economic diesels. A superior range with a turbo that flies from 0 to 60 in 8.9 seconds. You'll find more head and leg room, even central locking. Take a Bluebird for a test drive and you'll appreciate the 5-speed gearbox, supple suspension, power steering, and the superior handling specially developed on British roads. And wherever your journey takes you, you'll enjoy the truly luxurious levels of equipment. Equipment that the best-selling cars in their class simply can't match. Travel further and you'll discover all their extra quality and refinements. What's more, every Bluebird carries a 6-year anti-corrosion and a 3-year or 100,000-mile warranty. That means you could drive 4 times round the world without a worry. And in your Nissan Bluebird, you'll probably be tempted to. The new Nissan Bluebird, soon to be built in the world's most advanced car plant here in Britain.
Can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait.
Can't wait. Can't wait. Can't wait. I can't wait. I just can't wait.
French Connection. Clothes you can't wait to get into.
Gladys certainly wanted one of those fancy word processors, but I knew better. Instead, I got... Can I interest anyone in a virtually full bottle of correction fluid?
For personal computers, fax terminals and supplies. For a more efficient office, get Xerox in.
A full 0.5% off your mortgage interest for 1 year. That's Homeowner Plus from Midland.
We've been listening.
Cooey, Ada. I see young Bert's been down then.
Oh, make us a cup of PG and tell us all about it.
With what is the prisoner charged?
Smashing teapots, Lord.
They weren't smashing. The tea had no taste. No taste? Call for PG tips.
What did his lordship say then?
He agreed with Bert.
He wasn't a bad judge then, was he?
There's no other tea to beat PG.
It's the taste.
When you're driving from A to B smoothly through Cobley Colchester, tracking firmly on all fours around Snake Pass, totally in control over Hillenden and through the Mendips, and you don't even get your feet wet at Land's End, then you know you've got the right set of shock absorbers. Monroe shock absorbers. They'll keep your car where it should be, on the road.
They're tough, they're ruthless, they're on the trail, and they've only got 48 hours.
But I gave you 48 hours to come up with something, and the clock's running.
This guy got a real itchy trigger finger, and he's a nervous cop. You better listen to him, you get your brain blown out.
I'm the calm type.
What's happening, Luther? I'm sorry about the door, man. Did that hurt? It looked real painful.
Being a cop is a hard job, Jack.
Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy in the Thames film premiere, 48 Hours.
Y'all be cool.
Wednesday at 10:30.